Hello. Today I'm taking a look at a wine from one of arguably Germany's and certainly the Rheingau's finest estates. So this is from Weingut Robert Weil, and this is their Kiedricher Gräfenberg Spatlese from 2020. It's certainly Robert Weil has been a winery that's really sort of beloved by the critics. So Robert Parker was notably very fond of the winery, probably still is. The first vineyards were purchased in 1867 by Dr. Robert Weil, who at that stage was still actually a professor teaching at the Sorbonne in Paris. But in 1867 there was rising tension between France and Germany, which led to the Franco-Prussian War, which I think starts in 1870. So Weil found he had to return to his home in the Rheingau, where he'd bought these vineyards. He continued buying vineyards in Kiedrich, on the sort of the south-facing slopes there, and also in 1874 he bought the house of an English artist, Sir John Sutton, who had recently passed away, and the house was a very sort of a very stylised baronial mansion, which today is the headquarters of Weingut Robert Weil. And certainly it's a very striking property if you see pictures in sort of a black and white baronial style. Today the estate is run by Dr. Weil's great-grandson, Wilhelm Weil, and you know, they're blessed with the fact that they've got 90 hectares of these prime vineyards in Kiedrich, steep south-facing vineyards with broken stone soils, principally pylitic slate, so free draining, and giving quite a sort of a mineral expression to Riesling. And of these 90 hectares, they're broken into three vineyards. Two of them, the Thurmberg and the Klosterberg, are Erstesgewachs, and the Greifenberg is a Grosses Gewachs, the top level of quality for German vineyards. And also it's fair to say that the estate today has been one of the pioneers of sustainable agriculture in the Rheingau, really. I mean, with green cover crops between the rows, use of organic rather than synthetic fertilisers, no use of herbicides. Unsurprisingly, on steep slopes, everything is hand-picked. There's great care in selection and in taking the fruit to the winery to make sure it's not damaged. In the winery, they try to use gravity wherever possible to move the juice and wine around, and where it's suitable, the wines are allowed to ferment with indigenous yeasts. So a very hands-off, minimal intervention approach to the wine making there, and also as I started to say, really an incredible approach to selection, to the extent that they'll make something like 17 passes through the vineyards each year, in order to make sure they're picking everything at exactly the right ripeness. And they're incredibly proud of the fact that in the Greifenberg, for over 30 years now, every year they've managed to harvest a Trockenbeerenauslese, so possibly very small quantities some years, but by correctly selecting the right grapes, they've been able to do that on a top site, of course. What else to say? These wines are made, Greifenberg wines are made both sweet and dry. So the Spatlese will have some sweetness, then they'll make dessert wines, but to label the wine as a Grosses Gewachs, a GG, the wine has to be made trocken, dry, so they will also make dry wines. One of the things they say is, as far as fermentation is concerned, for the fruit for the wines with some sweetness in them, such as the Spatlese. There's a very gentle pressing. The juice is allowed to settle for a day, so you're fermenting very clear juice. But this wines with sweetness go into stainless steel for fermentation and aging, whereas the drier wines will go into large oak because they feel that's more textural allows the wine to fill out because of the micro-oxidation effect that exists there. So enough talk, let's have a look at the wine, shall we? A pale greenish colour. There may be ever so slight amount of spritz in the glass there. Not a noticeable fizz, but just, you know, the odd bubble in there. There is very little sign of legs being thrown there, but the wine is 8.5% alcohol, so it's not got a huge alcoholic weight. There may be a little bit of sugar in there. Let's have a look at the aromas, shall we? Wow, the aromas are lovely and clean and very, very fresh. There's a lifted green lime, green age, apple note there. There's a little floral note, but you can't smell sweetness. But this smells like it's sweet. Why does it smell sweet? Because it's rich and it's honeyed. There's a honeyed note to it, a honeysuckle, you know, lifted alongside that sort of lime flower note as well. So let's taste it. Wow, that's wonderfully pungent and delicate. You've got a real minerally core to the wine. There's limey fruit, real sort of juicy lime juice, slightly saline touches. There's a degree of sweetness there. I mean, it's more than off dry. It's not quite medium sweet, and that sort of beautiful, sort of slightly sweet, limey fruit. And the acidity is giving a juiciness to the finish. It's not making it huge. I mean, it's quite a light-bodied wine, as you'd imagine, with 8.5% alcohol. But that doesn't stop there being intensity and precision in the flavours. That real sort of crisp acidity cuts through. But there is a sort of a honeyed roundness just on the edges of that green limey notes of the fruit. Still seems very young, very fresh. I mean, I would imagine that you could keep this probably for about 20 years. And it's reflecting the vintage, where it wasn't a particularly hot year, but it was dry, and so the sustained temperatures allowed a slow ripening and allowed the retention of beautiful, delicate aromas in the wine, and that's what we see here. So thank you very much for watching. That's been Robert Weil's 2020 Kiedricher Gräfenberg Spatlese. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you'll subscribe. I hope you'll share the video, and hopefully we'll see you again. Bye now.